Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. You like that? 3, 1, 2, 3. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. I will ride with this group. Seriously, man. Please. And away we go.
Yeah, it's Combine Week. It's also Kirk Watch 2024.
You like that? You like that?
Where Kirk Cousins...
You like that? 3, 1, 2, 3. You like that?
News continues to flow in. Rumors, speculation. Kirk Watch 2024.
You like that? You like that?
And every day it's something new. Hell, every hour it's something new.
Has he posted a second video from a tennis court or some other athletic surface?
He's way too savvy. He is allowing teams around the league right now to digest what they saw on the tennis court. And then it'll be like, I bet next week.
How about a badminton court?
Well, you got to do like morsels, right? Like you can't flood the market with like, here's what I did, and then I did this, and then just morsels.
Just a little, hey, here we're dancing over here. We're throwing passes over there. You know, we're playing with our kids.
Today I'm on a pickleball court. But that's next week.
Sand volleyball? Can you re-tear
your Achilles? No, with an Achilles?
Not stable enough?
Dude, I'm telling you, I would be curious to know exactly what that tennis court was, because I bet it was the most, and it's smart. I bet it was a really good environment for the Achilles to drop back on. I'm telling you, he's not on grass, and he's smart for a reason. Like you're not going to drop back where there might be give.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I'm sure it was. He probably has a full staff dedicated to like the different surfaces at each point in the rehab process. That
I'm not kidding, and it's smart.
Can he even like walk through his kitchen? I mean, they might have had to redo the entire house.
Well, his kids were climbing on him, and he had to beg him not to hurt his Achilles.
Yeah. So, well, we have 3 things for Kirk Watch 2024 today. Starting with, because I think I know there's a lot of people that want Kirk Cousins to stay with the Vikings that continue to watch and listen to the show. And I have a scenario. If the Vikings do plan to bring Kirk Cousins back, I have a comparable scenario from 9 years ago in the NFL. And there's other ones too that I want to run by you guys after we shout out our friends, Judd at Livia, for helping a lot of Purple Daily listeners lose a lot of weight the last couple of years.
Yep, exactly right. If it's that time of year where you're like getting off the couch, you're like, it's getting nice outside, I'd like to drop weight. We'll be like Sports Dad right there, down 40 pounds. How? Thanks to my friends at Livia Weight Control Centers. And as Phil also said, there have been so many of you in the PD family who watch us, consume our show, who have joined and lost weight. And all of us can tell you one thing: this program works, and it's not a quick fix. This is a lifestyle change, but it's a positive one. They're going to help you not only drop the weight, but keep the weight off. And if you join now, your first 3 months are going to be for free. That's right. 3 months free. 3 months to lose just a ton of weight, feel great, and it's free. How about that? 855-GO-LIVIA, Livia.com, Livea.com. If you're outside the state, do not fret. The entire program can be done virtually. They will send you your food. It's as easy as can be. So no matter where you consume this show, if you'd like to consume less food and feel good about yourself, Livia.com.
You like that? 3, 1, 2, 3. You like that?
So the challenging part to projecting a contract, value, just everything about Kirk is age and lower body devastating injury at that age, right? I mean, if it was just Kirk coming off a really good season and he threw for 4,500 yards, I don't think there'd be nearly as much question about, okay, what is he going to be the next couple of years? Because he generally takes great care of himself. You know, he eats the right foods. He's dedicated to playing football and making a lot of money for a long time, right? So a couple things here. I was curious. I went to Pro Football Reference. There's a stat head section where you can kind of look at different things over the years. And I was wondering how many quarterbacks age 36 or older, and I looked at the last 30 years, have been effective. And I defined effective as 14 games or more started. So did you stay healthy for most of the season? Did you have a passer rating of 90 or better? And we could split hairs on some of that. Just because you had a 90 passer rating doesn't mean you were necessarily above average. In some, like in the 90s, only a few guys had 90 passer ratings, and so that would be considered well above average. But I just said, if you have a 90 passer rating, whether it's today or 20 years ago, you're not a train wreck, right? And then did you have a yards per attempt of 7 or higher? Were you able to at least get the ball down the field to some extent, 36 years and older? 13 different quarterbacks, several of them multiple times over, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, have had seasons age 36 or older where they played at least 14 games, passer rating of at least 90, yards per attempt at least 7 or higher. Brady, Rodgers, Peyton Manning, Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, Brett Favre, Kurt Warner, Rich Gannon, Steve Young, and Warren Moon with the Vikings, actually, in 1995.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Brett Favre also with the Vikings, 2009.
Great year. MVP year type of year.
Cunningham must have been a little younger than that, huh? Randall Cunningham in 1998.
I don't know what his age was at the time.
Yeah, I think I missed him. Was he quick side street? How old was Randall Cunningham in 1998?
30-something.
Let's see.
Because he played for the Eagles in the, he was...
Felt like he was like 40 years old that year.
No,
just kind of curious here.
No, he wasn't that old. He was not far.
35. He was 35, okay. So he missed the cutoff by 1 year.
Okay.
But then the next question is, how many of those 13 were coming off recently a devastating leg injury of some kind? And I might be missing one in here somewhere, but the one that jumps out is Carson Palmer, all right? I didn't mention him. He's the 14th one on this list. So here, if the Vikings are going to bring Kirk Cousins back, they might want to look at the 2015 Arizona Cardinals and Carson Palmer as an example of what can be done when. Now, that was an ACL. That was his second torn ACL because he had one earlier in his career. And I don't know that ACL tears and Achilles tears are exactly apples to apples.
Right.
We've gotten better surgically at getting those guys back on the field. But Carson Palmer had played 140 career games in the NFL leading up to that point. He had not had a playoff win yet. He was a rock solid, above average, but not elite quarterback that bounced around a little bit and then suffers a devastating injury as the Cardinals were kind of rolling, actually, in 2014. They started hot. He goes down. It's like early November. Kirk was late October, so very similar timeline, too. And then the Cardinals bring in the cavalry of backup quarterbacks, and they sputter down the stretch. They did still limp into the playoffs, and they get beat. But the next season, Palmer comes back. They've got Larry Fitzgerald. They've got Chris Johnson, David Johnson, a couple good running backs, an offensive-minded, obsessed head coach in Bruce Arians, right? And it was the perfect sweet spot for Carson Palmer. Hey, I've got 140 games of reference in my mind. The game is as slow now in my mind as it's ever been because I've seen everything at age 36. And my body is healthy enough off of the surgery. And they put together a 13-3 record. Carson Palmer finished second in MVP voting. He put up some of the best numbers he's ever put up in his career. They get a first-round bye in the playoffs. They beat the Packers in the divisional round. And Carson Palmer makes his only career trip to the NFC Championship game where they did run into that, I think it was a 15-1 Panthers team that went to the Super Bowl, the Cam Newton MVP season. Is this a fair comp? Like, if they bring Kirk Cousins back, is there a career second in MVP voting, 12, 13 wins, weapons all over the place? Hey, let's get the band back together one last time. Is there an Undertaker sitting up from the grave, from the casket moment for Kirk like there was for Carson Palmer in 2015?
So I saw this comp from you this morning, and I went and looked up Palmer's career arc run at that time. And you know what the most important thing was to me? If I'm not mistaken, prior to 2016, he signed a new contract. I think it was for 1 year. So if you tell me, can Kirk Cousins come back for 1 year? Will Kirk Cousins take what I'm offering for 1 year? Then I think the answer is yes. I can stomach that. So to me, yes. But I'm not going to explore this question if I have to tie into multiple years. So that's the most important thing is Kirk Cousins, and I think we all know the answer to this question, so it's rhetorical. But is Kirk Cousins willing to swallow hard, say, you know what, I'm coming off a devastating injury. I want to prove myself. Vikings, I want to do it here. I'll sign a 1 year contract, bunch of it guaranteed, that's fine. But then you can decide. And you know what? What the hell? We all can decide. So that is the most important thing. Because yes, I think the answer to your question is potentially yes. I wouldn't dismiss it. I mean, personally, I think it's a big long shot, but let's play the game because Carson Palmer, it's not like he had this long laundry list of playoff appearances.
No, he had
so you're right.
Two playoff appearances, and he had some good statistics, and he was kind of the Kirk Cousins of the
But I'm saying, so your point is valid.
But I think what's really interesting about a lot of these quarterbacks I just named, and Kirk fits squarely in the bin of like Matt Ryan in some ways and Phillip Rivers, these really good, rarely if ever elite quarterbacks that can still sling it into their mid and maybe even late 30s. The really intriguing part about today's NFL is you have a better chance of staying at the top of your game later into your career. So if you can, and Kirk's banked 140 games of reference points at this point. So much of quarterback play is just getting enough reps physically and visually and everything so that everything slows down. You look at and if your body can hold up long enough and it can intersect having played 120, 140 games, you get like the Peyton Manning first year in Denver type situation, or you get some of the numbers Drew Brees was putting up. And so I do want to leave open the possibility that Kirk does come back healthy enough. He's got 2 or 3 years left from age 36 through 38. And he has some sort of Rich Gannon, Carson Palmer, Matt Ryan won an MVP. He was younger, I think, when he won the MVP. But like, does he have that type of resurgence in him? We shouldn't be so quick to dismiss it. And this is from the number one Kirk hater. All right, I just want to make that clear.
But the problem is with Kirk though, again, I would need him to do this on a 1-year contract because I need to see him again in a playoff environment. Because so far he's won one playoff game in 6 years here. So I'm not going multi-year. But yeah, if Kirk said, I will take a 1-year contract, let's do it. It's got to be fair, to which the Vikings, I think, would say that's fine. Then yes, I think that correlation has relevancy. The issue is, so far we don't think that Kirk is going to do that. And if Kirk says it's got to be 3 years, then I say I'm not going to take the gamble that you're talking about with Carson Palmer. That to me, it's too much to put that many chips in when it's sort of being done on hope. And there's a difference, I think, between an ACL tear and an Achilles tear. ACL tears are repaired like old hat now, man. Like I feel like we've come a lot, just because it's so common. Achilles rupture, but certainly it does not feel like as much as ACLs do. So I do have a little bit more concern, especially with a pocket passer who wasn't mobile to begin with.
Yeah.
And a pocket passer has to plant his legs all the time. So on a 1-year contract, I like the comparison. But if we go more than a year contract, I think the comparison falls apart because if Carson Palmer had been bad, the Cardinals could have just said bye-bye or we're going to bench you.
But the argument Kirk fans will make, and honestly, that 2015 year was wide open in the NFC. And I don't mean to discredit what Cam Newton did. That was an MVP season. He was able to win that MVP award. He deserved to win that MVP award. But that was also the same year, the 2015 year. That's the Blair Walsh game, where the Vikings, if they make a dang field goal, they're going to the divisional round and playing that Carolina team too, right? So that NFC that year was pretty weak. Drew Brees had a great year, but the Saints didn't make the playoffs. Matt Ryan had a good year. The Falcons didn't make the playoffs. People look at the NFC, and for right or wrong reasons, they say, but the path there is easier than obviously being in the AFC where you have all these loaded quarterbacks all over the dang place, and your path was there. That's why 2022 Vikings with Kevin O'Connell in the first season, that path was also there, right? Like they just had to beat Daniel Jones, and the NFC wasn't as stranglehold as it was. So there is a comparison to be made that Arizona 2015, 2024 Vikings, it does hold up and it does make some sense.
But are you locking into Kirk then? Because that's what Kirk wants. Just for a point of reference, it took until August 5th of 2016 for the Cardinals to sign Palmer again to a 1-year, $24.4 million extension.
What year? Wait, what year did they sign that extension?
On August 5th, 2016, according to Wikipedia, they signed that extension.
So he did a deal. It looks like he did a deal for the 2000. He did a deal before the 2015 season. Right. That was a multi-year deal coming off the ACL surgery.
So
according to Spotrac. They said, hey, we know you're old and coming off an ACL, I think, and they still gave him a 3-year contract.
I wonder if they voided it then, because it says here that but the point is they were not tied. They were definitely not nearly as tied in to Carson Palmer as Kirk will want.
Yeah, no, I don't know did they have like all this? The problem too is like the Vikings have all this spillover cap that has to be accounted for from his last contract, which we've talked about a million times.
But would I dismiss Kirk? No, I wouldn't dismiss him completely. I just look at the point of reference of what we've seen through a 6-year period. And, and I think the Vikings, or at least some folks with the Vikings are like this. I think you do have to draw a line.
Also, I got a note from a listener, and I haven't verified this. I'm trying to verify it over at stathead.com right now, but that only 2 other quarterbacks in NFL history have started as many or more games as Kirk and have only 1 or 0 playoff wins. And it's Ryan Fitzpatrick and Andy Dalton. Is that correct? Or maybe it's, I don't know. We can verify that, but one of our listeners did some research that like it's pretty rare that you find a quarterback that starts 140 some odd games, and that's where Cousins is at in the regular season, and that he started 145 games with as little playoff success. So, it's
interesting.
I'm just floating out a comparison from almost 10 years ago of a comparable quarterback at the time. You've got your number 1 wide receiver maybe in the NFL at the time in Larry Fitzgerald. You got your offensive-minded coach. And like Declan said, you have kind of a wide-open conference too. So it's just if they – listen, I want the Vikings to draft a quarterback. So my stance is clear. But if they do decide to bring him back, I think we can start to have conversations on this show about, okay, what are the comps? Who else was out there at age 35, 36? Like Carson Palmer is one of the best examples. So let's get to the second item. We have 3 items on today's Kirk Watch 2024.
You like that?
Declan has some audio here. This is from the ESPN Radio morning show, which you can find locally in the Twin Cities on 1500 ESPN. Okay. And this is Adam Schefter. It's about 45 seconds or so. And he's being asked about Kirk Cousins and the video that was put out that we talked about earlier in the show.
Well, first of all, Kirk Cousins is one of the savviest, smartest guys out there. So, February 26th, a couple of weeks out of free agency, puts out a video of him moving around, looking great. And he should. I mean, that's what he should be doing. He's doing the right thing. He's advertising to teams. Here's a quarterback who's ready. So I don't know whether he's trying to send a message to every other team across the market. I think the one thing that I just would wonder about, if he felt so good about the state of talks with the Vikings, would he be doing that? Because I think in a perfect world, I think he'd like to stay in Minnesota. I think that would be something that would appeal to him greatly. He's enjoyed his time there. But if you're talking to your team, you're either advertising to another team or trying to prod your current team because it's not where it's at, right? Like if everything was moving along, do you think he's putting that video out there the way he did yesterday? If everything was right where he wanted it to be with Minnesota?
Thoughts?
I think he's 1,000% right. But again, on that, I give Kirk credit. And I mean, look, it's in Kirk's best interest, and it has been since last March, to campaign himself, to run his Cousins 2024 campaign as wisely as possible. So yes, I think Shefter is 1,000% right. But on this, I do not begrudge Kirk one bit. I think he's doing what he should do. I think he's doing what he does best, quite frankly. And you know what? I do give him a lot of credit because this is a league where players often get pushed around, right? By management. I've always contended their representation by the Players Association is lousy. And so good for a guy that's basically like, okay, here's where I'm going to draw a line in the sand. And you know what? If teams come back, like the Vikings say, we can't do that, that's the price of poker, baby. That's business. But yes, I think Schefter is correct. And I think there is nothing wrong with the fact that Kirk Cousins and his reps are doing what they do really well, which is saying, you know what? I was dancing at the award show. Now I'm dropping back. I believe he said at the end of the season when he met with the media, I think it was back in January. I think he said his goal is to take part in a large portion of whatever OTAs / mini camps for the team he goes to. I think it's, yes, good for Kirk. He should. And if he can come back from this, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. I mean, we've seen his value go up because of the cap going up for sure, and just like the general inflation of the NFL. But we've seen some of these contract projections go from when he tore the Achilles initially. I think we were maybe ignorantly on this show saying, boy, you could probably get him back for like $20 million now. This is great. Maybe less than that. Because he might have to miss a chunk of next season. We'll see kind of what the timeline is.
You're right.
Okay, and then he comes back and he's blowing the horn at a Vikings game, and he's out and about on vacation, and he's just kind of like putting himself out there on social. Okay, now PFF comes out and says, yeah, it's about $30 million a year. This is a month and a half ago. And then the NFL award show takes place, and he's dancing on stage, and he does all kinds of interviews around the country and internationally to show like, hey, I'm alive, I'm feeling good, I'm ahead of schedule.
Yep.
And then he starts throwing a football on a tennis court. Now it's like all of a sudden Bill Barnwell at ESPN.com yesterday is like $51 million average annual value. And absolutely nothing has happened other than him rehabbing, right? And just putting videos out on social media.
Yes. But the thing with Kirk, too, is it doesn't shock me because I don't think anyone has ever questioned his like desire to stay in unbelievable shape, right? Or to like him rehabbing really well, I think it is an expectation of Kirk. Like that's how Kirk is. And so, yeah, and it's very smart. He is, I would say this, he has rolled things out to show progress slowly but surely as well. So it's not like this, here's a Monday video, here's a Tuesday, which some guys probably post. It's been this very calculated, very smart. Look at me now, I'm dropping back. It's March.
What do you make of, again, Schefter is one of these guys, much like the Pelissero clip about, what was he talking about the other day? The Broncos and Kirk Cousins.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It was that the Broncos are a team to watch on Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins, yep.
Pelissero doesn't just float that because he's bored on the Rich Eisen show. He's probably getting intel. Schefter doesn't just float stuff. Schefter trades in information. And obviously, any of us can conclude what Kirk is trying to do here, which is, I'm trying to prove to the world that I am in a really good spot because I don't have a contract done. Clearly, there's a gap. But when Schefter comes out and says it, and he kind of theorizes it like, one thing you could read with this situation, according to my sources, but he's essentially saying, you could maybe read that things aren't in a great spot with Kirk and the Vikings.
Yeah.
He's not just pontificating out of nowhere. He's probably hearing, and he's not being allowed to just flat out say, at some point, we might get the Shefty bomb that says Vikings and Kirk Cousins are at an impasse, and things are now wide open for Kirk. Right, that tweet could be coming down the pipeline, but it's not quite there yet. But to me, there's value in a guy like Schefter speculating from an educated place like he is.
Well, and he probably is in contact with Kirk's agent, Mike McCartney, right?
For sure.
And nothing that, I think we think it's a bad thing, or I think that some folks think that we're being critical of Kirk and his representatives when we talk about him, that he should have a bust in Canton in the negotiation, part of Canton because he's been, but I don't think that that's seen internally as a bad thing at all. I think McCartney probably loves that. Look at what he's done. Like this guy's gotten guaranteed money. He got the first fully guaranteed contract. And so, yeah, I'm sure that like what Schefter said there might be seen as oh man, he's sort of saying that Kirk, is doing this or that. I think the Cousins representation loves that. And yes, I'm sure he said, look, things don't look great here. Things don't look great as far as the Vikings go. So I think that this all weaves into, another really good way of saying, hey, Kirk Cousins, free agency, it's probably happening, is to take arguably the most important information man in the entire league and use him as the point person.
Do you think, and we don't know what the exact figures are, that we don't know what the gap is, so it's hard to have a fully accurate answer here, but 6 years ago, Drew Brees and Kirk Cousins were both free agents. Drew Brees I believe it was the middle of February. Pretty sure it was the middle of February. Like before he hit free agency and tested the market.
Right.
He went back to the Saints. He said, I'm in 2 years. Let's do it. And then you guys can figure out, you got now a runway to figure out the rest of the roster building. And the Saints had a couple pretty good teams there in like 2018-19.
Yep.
Does Kirk deserve criticism for not just going back to the Vikings without testing the market?
No.
Because I've been kind of hammering him for, dude, you've made $200 million in your life playing football. If you really want to be in Minnesota, just go back to Minnesota. Why do you need to go and test the market with Atlanta and these other teams?
I think the answer to your question came last March when I think that the Cousins camp tried to, in their own inimitable way, extend an olive branch of negotiation, right? Like they were talking, and every Kirk contract, like Kirk has never gotten this far in 6 years with the Vikings and not had a contract. Mm-hmm. So I think last March when the Vikings said, you know what, for now we're good. Let's wait and see, which by the way, that was very smart of the Vikings. The Cousins camp said, okay, that's fine, but then we're going to wait and see till March. And that sort of sealed the fact that Kirk Cousins, you know, Drew Brees had a Super Bowl and longtime ties to that city, which was his, you know, big stop after things didn't work out with the Chargers. And Kirk Cousins has had ties here too. But you know what the difference is? I think the difference in the discussion between the Vikings and Kirk, and Spielman and Zimmer are probably still here, is playoff success and championships. Like, I think if Kirk Cousins comes in here in 2018 and final pieces the puzzle of this sucker, as was hoped, and the Vikings are hoisting a Lombardi trophy back then yes, I think there's a very good chance that the sides long ago sat down and said, okay, we need to make you a lifetime Viking from now on.
I stand corrected, by the way. It was before free agency, but they did kind of wait till like the eve of the free agent window opening up. Drew Brees and the Saints back in 2018. It was the second week in March. So that could still happen in theory. I don't know that it's going to. But Drew Brees never officially tested the market.
I was going to say, I seem to recall, though, that there were rumblings well before that a deal was basically going to be in place. And that Brees had also made it. Didn't Brees make it abundantly clear publicly that he didn't want to move on? Because we did shows talking about Drew Brees potentially being a Viking back then. Mm-hmm. And I think we also talked about the fact that he was actively saying, I want to stay with the Saints. But again, this is zero criticism of Kirk. I think both sides, I think the Vikings and Kirk are both, for their own good, playing this very wisely.
But it tells you that I think there's been this facade or this myth that Kirk bleeds purple, that Kirk is a Viking and this is Kirk's franchise and they love it here, but it's all of it's conditional.
Sure. The
Vikings have made offers, obviously, and I'm sure I doubt those offers are $15 million, right? So on one hand, yeah, go get whatever you want, go get whatever you can, and if you want to go maximize your worth every time out, that's totally fine. And the NFL Players Association would want you to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So like that's one way to look at it. But the other way to look at it is, if you really, truly do bleed purple and you love it here and you want to finish the job that was started 6 years ago by actually making a deep playoff run here, based on the current state of the roster, you can't milk the Vikings for every cent that the market values you at. You have to give a little bit here. And it's very obvious to this point, okay? We'll see what happens in the next 10 or 15 days. It's very obvious to me that Kirk values milking his worth for every cent and testing the market more than he does helping the Vikings as an organization accomplish what they were supposed to accomplish 6 years ago.
So we've talked about this a lot, and I think it's interesting, but I'll speak for myself. At this point in time, I feel like I would be hypocritical to say a guy who has made his bones. I mean, he will be remembered in some ways as a pioneer of contracts. I think
Congrats.
It would be, yeah, well, but I mean, he will be. And you know what? In 15 years, this guy might be a hero to the masses among the players because of what he did. But I think it would be somewhat hypocritical of me to be surprised that he's acting basically like he always has acted.
Well, I'm not surprised either. No,
Yeah.
I don't think the argument is whether you should be surprised or not. I'm just
But I
saying,
mean-
like, what should you do and what are your motives?
Well, I think you move. I think both sides move on. I think it's crystal clear. I think it's crystal clear that both sides move on. You know, there's this weird Kirk defender sanctum that exists that almost like takes the conversations to places that Kirk does not go. Kirk's personality and what Kirk says is not a reflection necessarily of Kirk as a businessman. He's a hell of a businessman. But I think it's just, you know what? It's been 6 years. You've run it back. You've tried. You've won one playoff game. You've made 2 playoff appearances. I don't know what the incentive here is for the sides to remain together other than almost a marriage of convenience. And financially, it's not going to be.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the third item in today's Kirk Watch 2024. If the Vikings and Kirk part ways, however it happens, I'm getting this from the aggregator Twitter account, The Purple Persuasion, which quotes a snippet from a Vic Tafur Athletic article. According to Vic Tafur of The Athletic, soon-to-be ex-Raiders quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo was penciled in as a possible option for the Vikings if they move on from Kirk Cousins. Quote, he could spray the ball around in Kevin O'Connell's offense until a later draft pick is ready to play. Now, Jimmy G has been through... Yeah, what does that look like?
It's like a hose, man. You got.
It doesn't have much of an arm too, so it really is just like a wacky hose. It's just spraying all over the place. It's not really going to go in one direction.
Inflatable noodle hose arm, Jimmy Garoppolo. So he's going to turn 33 years old in November. He's gone through a lot of stuff here. So last year with the Raiders, he was coming off. He had, what was it, Dex? A foot, a back.
What? A back ineffectiveness. I mean, he on top of the back injury and the foot injury that lingered in the offseason, he did just straight up get benched for Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah, it was bad for Jimmy Garoppolo last year. It was kind of a train wreck first half with Josh McDaniels, and the whole thing was a train wreck. But then he gets popped for performance-enhancing drugs too, right? So isn't he suspended for the first 2 games of the season? Mm-hmm. So with all of that said, how would you feel about Jimmy Garoppolo as a bridge quarterback in Kevin O'Connell's system?
God, pre-suspension, and by the way, you can still do all the OTAs. You can do all training camp. It's not like he has to sit on the sidelines until the 2 games are served. So he would still be involved in everything. But I would say that if the plan was, let's rip off the suspension here just for a second, this theory. If the plan was Jimmy Garoppolo as the bridge guy and the Vikings identify their quarterback that they draft early on the first round of the draft, I actually love this plan. I think that's a perfect little plan. Jimmy Garoppolo can spray the ball all over in Kevin O'Connell's offense. He can take some lumps. He can make sure they don't rush the rookie. And, you know, by mid-October, if a quarterback change is needed and they feel the rookie quarterback gives them the better option, then boom, you move on. Thank you, Jimmy Garoppolo. He'll still be a good soldier in the room. And great. But with him being suspended for 2 games, and let's say they again still go and get their quarterback, are we doing the Nick Mullins experience for the first 2 weeks of the season? Are you not rushing the rookie quarterback in? Do you rush the rookie quarterback in regardless if Jimmy Garoppolo's on the roster? The suspension makes things a little sticky, but I actually do not hate this idea of bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo as your bridge quarterback.
So first of all, once Kirk leaves, if Kirk leaves, but let's just assume for now he's going to leave, I have a very important question for the Vikings. What are your intentions now? Are you first of all, if you draft a quarterback in the first round, and I think we talked about this on the show yesterday, in my opinion, that needs to be a training camp competition. Like this whole bridge thing is it's almost like, well, you're going to have the starter, and then, okay, that's true if you bring in like a second or third round guy and you're like, I don't know about this guy. But if it's J.J. McCarthy, this guy has to be allowed to compete. Like, I want him competing from now. If he can't do it yet, that's absolutely fine. But my other question is this: if it's going to be like Garoppolo, are you taking a step back? And if you are, I'm fine with this. Are you taking a step back because you lost Danielle Hunter too, and you're just not going to be as good? But you've decided because the Lions and the Packers and the Bears are on the rebound or actually just flat out ascending, have you decided that you're going to sort of reset yourself? So, like, depending on what your response is to me, that's where, okay, Garoppolo's fine. But a guy like Garoppolo, to me, has to be competed with in training camp by what I think we all hope is a first-round draft pick. I think we're too hung up on, well, the bridge guy can step in for sure. Bridge guy could step in if I deem the rookie not capable. But this is O'Connell's guy. And so if that guy gets in there and competes, it's like, oh, my God, there is something here. Then I think you say, hey, Jimmy, we really appreciate what you've been doing. Now go watch the game with the rest of us.
Well, what makes it complicated, though, is like he's not going to play the first 2 games. Yeah. So it opens the door wide for let's say you draft J.J. McCarthy. Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to need a starter in the first 2 games. So J.J.
he might win the job.
It's all yours. I guess what I'm saying is it's a tough spot for Jimmy G because you're just anywhere you sign, you're not going to be guaranteed the starter job based on what happened last year. So you're only really going to get a crack if the rookie quarterback is just not ready yet, which would be a red flag and a bad sign too for some of these guys because some of these guys are like 23 years old. Jaden Daniels.
Right. That depends on age.
You would hope that they could just kind of step right in.
McCarthy's young.
But
yep.
I would also say, like, as bad as the Raiders situation was last year, they were 3-3 in the games that Jimmy G started. He played for the Niners for all those years. So teams that use Jimmy G as a starting quarterback are 43-20 going back to 2016.
Oh, he wins a lot of games.
And he's driving a lot of great cars throughout his career too. But here's another one. Okay, last year I'm going to kind of throw last year away. They had to fire their head coach midseason, total train wreck. Jimmy G had injuries and stuff.
Yep.
So if you take 2021 and 2022. In which, by the way, the 49ers were actively trying to find a replacement for Jimmy G, but based on injuries and different things, they
sent him to a side field.
I know. It's amazing. He said, Jimmy, just go over there and
work.
eat some lasagna
is
and
do all the work.
passes.
Jimmy, you just work with the kickers and punters.
So despite all of that, if you want to look at some of the advanced metrics, like I could show you the back of the football card stats. Hell, he led the NFL in yards per completion, net yards per attempt in 2021, passer rating over 100, QBR well above average. But if you look at expected points added individual quarterback performance, 2021-22, number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Joe Burrow. Number 3, Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's always been a lot better than people. He's got some Tony Romo in that he's known for some of these devastating brain farts in big moments, but the body of work is actually really good for him when he's been healthy. So you wouldn't just be like punting if you started Jimmy Garoppolo for a bunch of games, provided that he's healthy enough compared to what he was 2 years ago. I'm with Dex. As a bridge quarterback on like a 1-year deal, sign me up for the Jimmy G experience. Let's go.
I want to know what the plan is once Kirk leaves. Like I want to know what they're going to do. I don't think a first round quarterback would automatically sit. Now you can make a case that it certainly could help a quarterback to sit, but I don't think that with O'Connell coaching that player that he would be destined to be behind a bridge QB. But it would be nice to have a competent QB, a veteran, right? Like I think we've all decided that Nick Mullins is probably not that guy. So
I know, but there's a lot of fans that would say, well, why don't you just lean in and lose a bunch of games? I think once you get your quarterback in the door, you need to start building as quickly as possible, winning habits, winning culture.
Yeah,
you can't just mess around and tank a year and hope.
Let's talk about that too. That's an interesting point, especially in football. Now, I was all in favor of bailing at the trade deadline after Kirk got hurt, and yes, the Vikings were on a small win streak, but they had started by winning one of their first 5 games. Okay, but I'm with you on when you start the season. I don't think saying, "Hey, you know what? Some guys are gone. We're definitely not, who we've been previously. We're not going to run things back. We didn't run things back." I think that there's a case to be made, though, that in football, that's not death. So, like, if you start to bring in young guys, which the Vikings need to do, and you start to play them. Now, are you probably going to lose some close games? Absolutely. But, yeah, that's not like tanking to me. That's developing guys, because they're going to need to play at some point in time. Your draft picks need to play. You need to make decisions based on games. So I think that you have the leeway, or you should at times be given that, where your team might not be great, but it's not because they're not trying to win, and it's not because you're not developing players.
Yeah, yes, you can't. I think, like I said, I'll just same thing I said off the top. You can't decide, oh, we got our new quarterback, so we're not going to be the greatest. Let's try to go 3-14.
Right.
If you happen to go 3-14 as you're developing young players, I actually still think that's bad, because you don't want to fall into a losing culture. But I still contend that with some of the pieces they have, they are 3-14 proof. The floor for this team, even with a rookie quarterback, provided Jefferson, provided O'Neal, Darisaw, you're going to be competitive. So let's do a mock here before we say goodbye on this episode, gentlemen.
Mock!
And a couple shout outs. Number one, we're like a week into raising money for just the devastating events that happened 2 Sundays ago. 2 Burnsville police officers, Paul Elmstrand and Matthew Ruggie, and firefighter paramedic Adam Finseth were tragically killed in the line of duty. And we're just trying to raise money for their families. So over at scorenorth.com/donate, you guys have already helped us raise a few $1,000s. We are raising money via the Frontline Foundation, which has already organized $60,000 for the families. So please donate if you can. $5, $50, $500, whatever you feel comfortable with. scorenorth.com/donate. And a shout out to our friends at Federated Insurance. So as a business owner, do you have a game plan in place to stay focused on safety, preventing claims? Maybe not. Maybe you're so entrenched in the day-to-day operations of your business. That's where Federated comes in and offers a customizable lineup of industry-specific coverages and risk management services to help you continue your winning streak as a business owner. At Federated Mutual Insurance Company, it's our business to protect yours. Find out more at federatedinsurance.com.
I want to mock!
This one's from The Athletic, gentlemen, and this is all of their college draft staffers, or all of their college football staffers. So they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different college football staffers at The Athletic, and they have put together a mock draft.
And they all agreed on a mock draft, huh?
No trades were allowed for this mock draft.
Okay,
however.
I'm out. See you guys later.
Lazy. It's lazy.
See you guys on the next show.
Bears, Caleb Williams. Commanders, Drake May. Patriots, Jaden Daniels. Cardinals, Marvin Harrison Jr. Chargers, Brock Bowers. Giants, Malik Neighbors. Titans, Olu Fushanu, tackle, Penn State. Falcons, Roma Dunze. Okay. Bears, Talise Fuaga, tackle, Oregon State. Jets, Joe Alt, tackle, Notre Dame. And that brings us to the 11th overall pick, where The Athletic has the Vikings selecting out of Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy.
I want to mock!
You still out, Judd? Still out?
No, I like the pick. I hate no trades. I like the pick. I honestly think by the time this is all said and done, I think J.J. McCarthy stock will rise. I think Drake May stock might drop.
He's not throwing at the combine.
Yeah, and he also, I don't know.
I'd
think
throw at the combine. No, I wouldn't.
Would you
That'd
sling
be
it
a
around?
disaster.
Would you spray the ball around at the
Yeah, I'd
combine?
spray the ball.
Would you run
Ball around.
at the combine?
Would I what?
Like, would you run at the combine?
Oh, I'd
Like,
run. That's the one thing I can do. I would 100%
So you wouldn't
run
throw
at the combine.
You
yes.
wouldn't throw, but
Yes.
you would do the
Yep.
the 40 and all that stuff.
Yep. I would love.
might wait
I would
to do
I would
a-
love to do a 40-yard dash.
I think at that point I'd wait to do all my stuff at my pro day. I'd make them
Controlled
wait.
environment for you.
Controlled environment, and I wouldn't take the tests. And I would refuse to meet with teams. Man of mystery. In fact, you know what? I wouldn't show up.
Just
Really
you would just
interesting.
go completely AWOL until the
Yeah.
draft and take
Really
your chances.
interesting draft.
I think
No,
if
I-
you're
no,
if you're
I-
Marvin
I do a
Harrison
pro day.
Jr., you can get away with it.
I do a pro day.
If
I-
you're
I would do my
fifth
pro
round
day.
pick guy, you're probably not going to get drafted.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying if I was a first round pick quarterback, I'd skip the combine. I'd Manziel it to Hawaii.
Oh, that's going to raise your stock. for
Yeah,
sure.
that would. That'd do well.
This is what The Athletic wrote about McCarthy, by the way. Minnesota could go one of two directions with this slot. The Vikings could take J.J. McCarthy and undertake an awkward or wholesale rebuild, depending on what happens with Kirk Cousins, or they could snag the most versatile defender in Iowa defensive back Cooper DeJean, who would immediately elevate Minnesota's secondary and punt return game. After what happened last year when Cousins was injured, it's time for the Vikings to start succession planning. McCarthy was critical in elevating Michigan to the national title. Give him 2 years, he may be on the cusp of a Pro Bowl.
I think his stock is going up. I don't think he'll be around at 11, but I don't think that necessarily means the Vikings won't get him.
Very interesting. Actually, we got some quotes coming out here too from Combine Media Day. I'll read this one. We can do more on this maybe tomorrow once everything comes out. But Kevin O'Connell was on KFXN radio.
I've never heard of that station before.
And he says that, so KOC says he's had a ton of dialogue with Kirk Cousins this offseason. Lots of football talk, some contract talk. Quote, I think Kirk wants to be a Viking. He knows we want him to be a Viking. Hopefully we can work to get there. Do you buy it? I buy it. I think they're...
Sure, I buy it.
It's so interesting, man.
I buy it, but I mean, O'Connell is going to be steamrolled by the contract Kirk. He's just going to flatten like a pancake by contract Kirk. Like, yes, I buy that I buy O'Connell wants him back. But I mean, do I also think that O'Connell is going to go to the corner and ball himself up and start crying if Kirk does not come back? No, I don't.
We've talked about this before, but what is Kevin O'Connell's drink of choice like at the local at St. Elmo's in Indianapolis? Like, is he getting a light beer? Like, Kwesi seems like a red wine bottle guy. Like, he's getting a bottle of red for the table, and KOC's like, I'm not touching that. I'll take maybe a Mick Ultra or something. I wonder what he would choose.
I think KOC might go with some hard stuff.
Like a whiskey something?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah, he's a family man, lightweight. I think I'm with Dex. I think it's like a light beer.
Yeah. Maybe a
seltzer?
Yes. I don't know. His
like a Stella
body type
Artois.
and the way he doesn't seem like a hard... I could be completely wrong on this, but he doesn't seem like a hard drinker to me. I think it's like a light beer, and a Stella is like the cream of the crop of class.
I think it's a Truly.
You guys are selling him short. He's in pro sports.
Mixed berry.
You guys are selling him short. I know he's a tall guy and he's extremely thin, but pro sports,
dude,
athletes,
he actually seems like, you know, those Mick Ultra ads
players.
where it's like they're all hiking up a mountain.
Yeah.
You know, we just climbed Mount Everest, and the first thing we're gonna do is crack open a cold one, a Mick Ultra.
I think that you are
Kevin
stereotyping him by his body type. I think that he is. I think he is far more of an ability to handle his booze than we think.
Hopefully, we find out this week.
He just starts
Combine week,
and he just starts giving scoops to everybody. I've been drinking a few of those Mick Ultralights. You want to really know what's going on?
You want to hear about Kirk?
You like that? You like that?
He broke my heart.
We'll see you guys tomorrow for some Write That Down predictions and recapping what Vikings leadership said maybe over a couple beers at the Combine today.